last week we were talking about the making of devil. And this week we wanted to get off into the making of God. You say, God made? Well, yes. How do we make God? Is Allah made? No. Allah is self-created. Well, how do you make God? By following Allah. If a teacher, listen, teaches you, and you submit to your teacher, what can the teacher make you? Make you a teacher. If brother is a journalist, and I want to learn journalism and I don't have the money to go to college, if I study under brother, submit to his instructions, at a certain point in time, I can become a journalist by obeying a journalist. I can become a doctor by obeying a doctor. I can become a nurse by obeying a nurse. The problem with the American educational system, I'm going to touch this very briefly, is that they try to make it appear that the acquisition of knowledge is a very hard thing, while in truth we are born into this world with a head that is able to perceive all kinds of knowledge. And we are born with an innate ability to master any discipline that we choose. You are not born to be mediocre. You are actually born to be a master. In this society, they make it some sort of elitist kind of thing, that you must be tested. Then if you fail the test, you can't go on to become a doctor or a lawyer. Any of you that has a will to be a doctor can become a doctor. Any of you that has the will to become a lawyer, a teacher, a chemist, a physicist, a botanist, a mathematician, you can become whatever you will. That is the nature in which God created every last one of us. Now, the reason you don't become what you will is because of a set of impediments that are placed in the pathway of your progress. Now, I say that to say this: if you study under a devil, you become a devil. Because a devil is not going to make you a God of righteousness. He's going to make you a master of evil. If you study under the God of righteousness, you become godly, godlike. Is that clear? Yes. So now, if I asked you, who would you like to be under? Would you like to be in the classroom of Satan or in the classroom of the Creator? You would all say, I would like to be in the classroom of the Creator. Then how are we so evil? If we are evil, then it means we may like to be in the classroom of the Creator, but we are right now in the classroom of Satan, and we have studied well. For we have become little devils. Oh, now, don't get excited. This is not what you were made for, but this is what you are being made into because you got the wrong teacher. And you're listening to the wrong influences. And the wrong influences are shaping us in sin and after iniquity. We cannot deny that America, as the Bible teaches, has become a habitation of devils. Now, Allah says that the jinn were made before in the Quran. The jinn were made before. The jinn is a name for fiery spirit. Fiery spirit. I want you to listen to me very carefully. So many of us think that the jinn is an entity that is made before the man, and that is true. But the jinn stage is a stage on the way to the evolutionary development of a real man. But if at any time you stop in the process of your development, you could stop at the stage where you are considered jinn. Now listen to what I'm saying. Jinn represents fiery temperament, fiery nature, where you give rise to emotionalism. You're controlled and governed by your emotions rather than by a developed intelligence. Do you understand? When you look at a newborn baby, have you checked this out? When you don't give the baby what the baby wants, when the baby wants it, the baby cries. And if you listen to the baby, sometimes you can hear that that cry will evolve into a fierce anger, where the baby is crying and you can feel that that baby is actually angry. And it gets so angry till sometimes it cries until it turns different colors and even can become blue and knock itself out by its own anger. Well, how did it get angry like that? Why did it show this fire? Because fire is a part of the human nature. Listen, there is fire in everything that is in creation. There's fire in you, there's fire in me, there's fire in grass, there's fire in everything, because all life is touched and energized by the fire of the sun. So the fire of the sun is in all things. This is how and why we can get angry and show fire. Literally, when you get angry, you can get so angry till it looks as though fire is coming right from your eyes. Your whole countenance will change under the thought and the spirit of anger. Fiery jinn. Fire, the jinn was made before what? Before you get to the stage of completed man, you get to the stage of jinn. And whenever you have a person that is considered jinn, this means that they have knowledge, they may have wisdom, they may have some understanding, but they are not yet developed enough to control the fire of their own nature and temperament. Do you follow what I am saying? All praise is due to Allah. Now, if you cannot control the fire of your temperament, you are an underdeveloped human being. Underdeveloped. And under that fiery temperament, you can wreak havoc on the earth, in your home, wherever you are, because you're not guided by reason, you're guided by passion. Are you listening? All right. You may not like this statement that I'm about to make, but I make it fully knowing what emotionally you may say. When the Honorable Elijah Muhammad refers to Caucasian people as devils, and he's speaking generally now, he is saying something about the fiery nature and temperament of an underdeveloped species of the human family that has rejected the teachings of the prophets. And by rejecting the teachings of the prophets and the law of God, they have rejected the very thing that would control that fiery temperament and allow them to grow into a spiritual being which would make them more harmonious with God, with the nature of creation, and with the natural men and women of creation. But if you notice the Caucasian, he's very hasty and fiery. You can't upset him too long before he reacts violently. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us on the nature of alcohol and the nature of water, and how the boiling point of alcohol, I believe, is 160 degrees Fahrenheit or 180 degrees Fahrenheit. but the boiling point of water is 212 degrees. Now, when you partake of the spirits, alcohol, you watch that people who drink alcohol, people who use drugs, they have a tendency to be very impatient and they anger quickly. But those who are balanced, whose systems are balanced, they take a longer time to get angry. Anger is something that must be controlled. If anger is not controlled, it destroys the person who is angry. You've heard the saying, he whom God will destroy, they first make angry. All right. Now, here we have a volcano that erupted down in South America, Colombia. That volcano was dead for 400 years. Out of the center of the earth, what came up? Fire. Showing you that even though the earth is cool on the surface, there is fire beneath the surface if you bring it out. Are you listening? Follow what I'm saying now. Molten lava was at the core of the earth under that volcano. As the volcano became alive and the fire came from beneath, came up. Now think about that, coming up a mountain and then spewed out of the mountain. The natural snow caps that hold water at cold temperatures, where the peaks of mountains are snow capped. But when the gentle summer comes, it causes the water to melt, and the water runs down from the mountains, forming what is called rivers. And the rivers, of course, give fertilization to the valleys, etc., from the snow that is built up on the mountains. This is a very natural process. But when nature is disturbed and a volcano erupts, spewing out molten lava over the top, and that lava hits the peaks, the waters melt in an unnaturally quick fashion, causing flooding and mudslides. What about the fire in the nature of human beings? Are you listening? Every one of us is calm, apparently, I hope, right now. But there is no human being who cannot be made angry to the point where you violate all that you think you know. The knowledge in your head is like the water that is frozen at the peak of the mountain. You hold your knowledge here in your head and you use it as it becomes necessary, right? But when anger comes up, you act as though you knew nothing. You become violent, you become berserk, you become a maniac. Sometimes you can't see anything. You act as though you're a person that had no knowledge at all, for you do things, and when you do it, after it's done, you say, oh my God, did I do that? How many black young men and women are in prisons, or white young men and women, or older men and women are in prison today because of anger that got them so totally out of control? Passion that was so great that they couldn't control it, that it defied all of their knowledge, and they killed their loved ones, killed their children, killed their mates. You understand? Most of the people that are in prison today are not in prison because they are cold, premeditated murderers, but their crimes are crimes of passion, because we live in a society that does not teach men and women sufficiently that we may gain control of the fire of our own being. So when you see a bunch of angry people that you will see just for parking, for instance, you're going for a parking lot, you and the other person see the parking lot about the same time. They're backing up, you trying to get in. So an argument ensues. A man reaches in, picks up his gun, shoots you over a parking space. What happened to that man? What made him lose his ability to think? Is it worth it over a parking space? Sometimes you're all messed up, you go to the pool room for evening of relaxation. You're playing pool and somebody said, well, let's put a dollar on the 9 ball or whatever you want to gamble for. And then the person beats you and then said, oh man, I knew you was a chump. I knew you didn't know what you were doing. Just laughing at you, mocking you, but in your nature, you can't stand to lose. You want to be a winner and you've been a loser all your life. Here's one more little loss and it's over $1. So anger comes up in you. And all of a sudden you lose your mind. And you kill the man with the pool stick. And you're doing time now for a passionate murder. But you are not a murderer. Every human being has the potential for murder, and you see it in the baby who exhibits this kind of anger that will almost stifle oxygen from coming to the baby. Well, so it is when we get angry to the point where it blinds us. We are stifling and choking off inspiration and wisdom from giving us balance with our anger. This shows a mentality in the society that is a jinn mentality. People are hasty, people are of fiery temperament, people are quick to do harm to each other. Do you see what I'm saying? Now, if we're going to make a devil, when you add to a fiery potential false pride, when you add to that a lack of submission to the will of God, then you've got all the ingredients to make a real enemy for self and others. Now, in our lessons from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he raises the question that has been so misunderstood: why does Muhammad and any Muslim murder the devil? Murder is a premeditated thing. It is planned and carried out according to a plan. Why does Muhammad and any Muslim murder the devil? And what will be your regards, your reward rather, in regards to taking 4 devils' heads? So many of us in the days of our ignorance, and many white people who got those lessons, and the FBI certainly has them, they're looking and say, oh my God, these Muslims are being trained to be murderers of the devil. We really are. We really are. But not in the way you think, wicked one. We are not out here planning to murder human beings, taking their physical life. That's not what it's about. 4 heads. Does that mean that every Muslim must go out and actually take the head off of 4 devils? No. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad didn't want these lessons in the prisons. Because in the prison a man don't have anything to do but look at things like this and think of his condition and who put him in such condition. He might get angry and start getting a few heads in the jail, and this is not proper. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did not want such lessons in the prison. But as we mature in the teaching, we began to understand that you've got 4 beasts that the Bible talks about. 4 great beasts, and it's not talking about physical animals, but it's talking about human beings who have not matured spiritually, who are of that beast-like temperament and nature. They are underdeveloped human beings, so they're on the level of the lower forms of life. America is like that. She's one of the great beasts that the Bible talks about. Sorry about that, brothers and sisters, but that's the truth. England is like that. She's one of the great beasts that the Bible is talking about. Germany is like that. Italy was like that. Russia is like that. These are beasts. When you have a beast, the beast doesn't think about what's right or wrong. The beast says, I'm hungry. Here's a little lamb, I'll pounce on it. America doesn't think of right and wrong when she thinks about the raw materials that are in some Latin American country, some Central American country, some Asian country, some African country. If it's there and we need it and there's an opportunity, we take it. That's the nature of a beast. That's the nature of the foreign policy of the government of the United States. It is the foreign policy of a beast. Do you hear what I'm saying? Now, are you anti-American, Farrakhan? Not at all. I am anti a beast being in governance over human beings. Because if a beast governs human beings, and that same beast manipulates and formulates that institutional life, then what can you come out of these institutions being? These institutions don't make you human. These institutions absolutely foster in you the elitist mentality that makes you think you're better than your brother and sister if you happen to have a degree, and then you try to use your less fortunate brother and sister, manipulate them with the same mentality of the beast who governs you. It is a beast that governs not only the political arena, but the religious arena is also governed by human beings who are underdeveloped, fiery temperament. They give the appearance of holiness, but they are absolutely beasts in human form. And what I'm suggesting is that the hierarchy of the Catholic Church, the hierarchy of the Christian church, the hierarchy of the Jewish synagogues, the hierarchy of the government of America have no right reason to govern the people. What are you making of the people? Look at the people who are coming out of these institutions and tell me if the fruit bears witness to the nature of the tree. Then the people of America bear witness that the institutions of America are unfit to have our babies in their hands, black or white. Okay, now this is simple truth. You and I have been made other than what God intends for us, and we lack control of the fire of our own being. What is it in a human being that will cause a human being to lynch another one? Lynch him because he didn't do anything wrong. I just hate this black person. Well, if your color means so much to you that you hate something that is other than your color, then how do you think about the God who is the creator of color? If God is the author of color and gave us our color that you hate, then you want to kill us because God made us black. Then what does that tell you of your thinking toward God? See, you are a beast in your mentality. And when you are knowledgeable and not yet human, then you absolutely use deceit and trickery to deceive the people and carry them into a veritable hell. And this is why Elijah Muhammad referred to this as a devil society. And we cannot deny that. Well, the broadcast is just about over, but those of you who would like to get the tape, You may call 994-5775. I'm sorry, Louis Farrakhan is just getting started on this subject. I will not be very long, but I will be at least 45 minutes more, so you have time. If you'd like to, come on out now. It's raining. Spend your afternoon with me. The Bears play tomorrow night. Hope to see you soon. May Allah bless you. That number again is 994-5775. What's that number? 994-5775. And now we go on with the truth. Now, beloved brothers and sisters, listen. If the devil has 4 heads, what is the head that produces fornication, adultery, incest, sodomy, homosexuality, perversion, and acts of freakishness? It is an appetite that God gives to each of us, which is the appetite of sex, which is a fire. And when somebody wants to get you stirred up in that direction, they attempt to make you what? Hot. Excuse me. Pardon me, but that's the language. In the heat of the night. The dog is in heat. I need to go get a cold shower to do what? Cool down this heat. Where'd the fire come from? Fire came from within. Who stoked the fire? Who stimulated the fire? Who put fuel on the fire? Somebody who knew how to touch the right button where you were concerned at the right time could, come on baby, light my fire. Oh, excuse me, I just get carried away sometimes. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, when you're singing a song, come on, baby, light my fire, what are you saying? You got the match. I sure got the fire. Now, if there's a fire burning in each of us, then anybody that got the match, that strikes it at the right time, under the right circumstances, you start firing up. Well, okay, then sex, the appetite of sex is a fire. Right?
Yes, sir.
Is it right?
Yes, sir.
Does it need to be controlled?
Yes, sir.
Agreed?
Yes, sir.
We all right? Is anger a fire?
Yes, sir.
It's a fire, it's a passion, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Does it need to be controlled?
Yes, sir.
These are lusts. Is the desire for material things, the acquisition of things, is it also a fire? See, I'm on fire. I got to have that car. I like that car. I want that car. You see the person get lit. Their eyes begin to sparkle because a fire is raging in them. See, but having a desire for a thing is not wrong, but having control of the desire is proper. Otherwise, people can take advantage of you by starting a fire and then manipulating you by the fire. Okay, so we've got a lust for sex, appetite for sex, an appetite for anger, an appetite for material things. Then we have another terrible fire that burns, and sometimes it can go unnoticed. It's the fire of envy. When you think someone has something that you yourself want, you think think it belongs to you. So you sit there and hate the person that has it, and this fire is raging in the furnace of your own soul, burning to ashes your spiritual form.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his servant and messenger. I want to greet you, my dear beloved brothers and sisters in the listening and watching audience. In the greeting words of peace, we say it in the ancient tongue of Arabic, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome, 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 dear beloved family, to another episode of the Imagination Show. My name is Brother Leo Muhammad, and sitting alongside me is my beloved friend and wife, Sister Claudia Muhammad.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, I bear witness that there's no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. I greet you all in the greeting words of peace of Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, beloved.
Thank you all once again for tuning in to another edition of the Imagination. I pray that you are all safe and well and enjoying the countless blessings from Almighty God Allah.
Absolutely. Praise
Yes,
be to
praise
Allah.
be to Allah.
Dear family, it's just such an honor and a privilege each and every week to have this opportunity to come before you and to share with you some more of the life-giving teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad as taught and exemplified by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Dear family, welcome, welcome, welcome to the Image and Nation show. You know, it's a beautiful thing each and every time that we are able to come out and share this word. And when we play the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan at the start of the show, I mean, that knowledge, that wisdom, that understanding that he shares is just so powerful that I would encourage each and every one of you to seek out that lecture in its totality. The title of it is How to Make a God. Okay, How to Make a God. You really should try to get that lecture. I'm sure it's available on NOI.org, and you can also find it on YouTube, but you should study.
That's the serious title.
It's phenomenal. And, you know, it's all about us coming to an understanding of self, you see, because we are related to God. We are his children. That's why we say, Our Father who art in heaven. It's not just rhetoric. It's not just using words like that for the sake of it. It is because Almighty God Allah is indeed our Father. And we need to know something. We need to know everything in truth about our origin and, you know, who is God and how do you make a God? How do we get back to our God self? How do we, you know, fulfill that scripture that says, ye are all God's children of the Most High God? Because believe it or not, there are some people who are absolutely determined that you and I should never, ever come into that type of knowledge.
That's right.
Because they know that once we come into that type of knowledge, we become a people who they can no longer control, a people who they can no longer manipulate, a people who they can no longer deceive, a people who they can no longer destroy with impunity, you see? And so this is the fear of a world like this. And this is why the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is so opposed by the so-called powers that be. We say so-called because they're really not the powers. They are not the power. The power is Almighty God, Allah. And you and I need to get reconnected. Dear family, our show today Sister Claudia and myself, we're back in our normal place, and praise be to Allah. What a blessing.
Yes.
And but again, I don't really want this to necessarily be long. It is a subject that really has been troubling me for a few weeks, really thinking about it and contemplating how to approach it. And I'm not 100% sure how it will unfold today, but I'm going to do my very best. We will do our very best to really hit those few points that we think are necessary in order for us to really understand the nature of the subject matter and why it is necessary for us to avoid the vulnerability of the enslaved mind. This is a serious, serious thing. I did want to look up the word vulnerability. It's a big word, and I'm not going to go into the fullness of defining it, but suffice to say that one way that you can define vulnerability is to say exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed, either physically or emotionally. We were in a vulnerable position. When you feel vulnerable, that you could be harmed, or in fact, you are vulnerable, and it makes you susceptible to being harmed. It makes you susceptible to fear. It makes you susceptible to all manner of things, either real or perceived. It's a vulnerable place to be. It's a vulnerable person. And so we really want to get into this. And so without further ado, just 1 second, dear family, just bear with me. All right, let's have a look. Okay, that's a little bit better. Just had to adjust the lighting.
Okay, before just to send our condolences to Sister Loretta, who said her mother died in a house, passed away in a house fire. Can you see?
Yes. Is that Sister Loretta that we know?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
Yes.
Maybe you can let us know, Sister Loretta. We do send our deepest condolences for your loss, but please let us know if you are the Loretta that we know and have known for many, many years. Dear family, here we go. We're going to get into our subject right now. And where are we? We're literally at 191,
Wow.
I believe, is our number today. Welcome to episode 191 of the Image and Nation show. Today is Thursday, July the 17th, 2025. And as just stated, our title is The Vulnerability of the Enslaved Mind. Family, to have an enslaved mind makes us just totally vulnerable. See, that's a mind that's not our own. That's a mind that is being controlled. That is a mind, dear family, that I think there's a saying, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. Well, that's a mind that's gone completely to waste if it's enslaved and unable to perceive or to think or to fashion or to, create by its own ability to think what it wants. That's a terrible, terrible condition to be in, dear family. And I know for many of us, we will immediately say, well, my mind is not enslaved. But I say to us, humility is one of the things that we must cultivate in our lives today. And if we're humble enough, then I would say, don't say, outright that you're not yet. Just really think about some of the things that we do and some of the positions that we find ourselves in. And then having examined our life and how we think and the things that we do and the things that we are afraid of and the things that we are, not able to control in our lives. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was talking about, that fire of anger, that fire of sex, that fire, that passion that must be controlled. The other day I was involved in a little barbecue situation and I started a fire. But guess what? That fire had to be controlled. That fire couldn't just be allowed to just burn anything and anywhere that it wanted to go. And believe me, at a certain point, that fire was trying to escape from that barbecue and to do its own thing. But it had to be brought under control, and it had to be a controlled flame. See, family? And everything in our lives, especially the fiery temperament and the fiery nature of these things, like sex, like anger must be controlled. And so, dear family, let's get into our subject this evening. Now, it's very scary to consider the vulnerability of the enslaved mind of the Black man and woman in the 21st century, and the fact that after over 400 years of the most wicked and brutal acts carried out against us by the former slave masters and their children, many of us continue to trust and even love them despite all the evidence of their hatred against us. Just think about that, because, see, you can only trust and love somebody who has been so brutal and wicked for such a long period of time against you and your people. We could only continue to trust and love if our mind has been enslaved by them. See, once upon a time, they had us in physical chains. But, most people appreciate today that those physical chains are no longer present, but there is some chains around our thinking, around our brain, around our minds that needs to be removed, because those chains, though they may be invisible, they're even more powerful, dear family, than the physical chains that once held us, manacled us by our legs or by our arms or around our necks. We must come to the appreciation that the mind of the human being is the most powerful thing that needs to be freed. We need to free our minds. We cannot continue to be a people who have this mentality where we trust and we love an enemy who hates us and shows us nothing but hatred yet. And, and I understand our nature is love. I'm talking about the original man and the original woman, the original people. Our nature is love. And so there is a part of us, being the children of God, that just naturally have that inclination to love, you see? But understand that you cannot love the wicked. You cannot love the enemy. You cannot continue, because if you do that and then you suffer the consequences, you only have yourself to blame. You can't then turn around and cry and moan and complain and, oh my God, oh, woe is me, and how terrible my life, which is what many of us do. But we're the ones who keep putting ourselves into that vulnerable position because we refuse to extricate ourselves from that slave mentality, which says, and which was codified, by the way, in many what they call slave Bibles, that we should love those who despitefully use us, or love our enemies, or turn the other cheek when they slap us on one cheek, turn the other cheek. If they steal our jacket, give them our trousers, and on and on and on. And you'd be surprised, dear family, just how many of us still have this very sad mentality. And it's not a virtue. It doesn't help us. It does not benefit us in any way or form, you see? And so it's very, very important that we appreciate that, this is a mentality that has to be faced up to and changed. Not a day goes by when I'm not able to witness something that is so degrading and embarrassing to us as Black people that I'm almost left speechless. A case in point being this extremely sad example of a Black woman meeting King Charles and absolutely losing her mind to the point where she is crawling on her knees, screaming, laughing, and shaking like someone suffering a mental breakdown. This is 2025. I believe this took place in an area in North London where King Charles went to visit a place where this Black woman was one of those that was there to greet him. And her behavior, dear family, it's sad. And one of the reasons why I'm going to play this and I want us to look at this is because, make no mistake about it, she is not unique in that type of expression. She really isn't. And many of us have that same attitude and thought process when it comes to, the former colonial masters, the so-called royal family, and so on and so forth. When you go back to our parents' generation and how they always had that image of King George on the wall, and, they really worshipped Caucasians, and many of our parents to this day will have a white Jesus. And even though we of our generation will try to educate our parents and tell them, well, no, he didn't look like that. And we'll show them in the scripture where it describes the way the man looked, gives a proper description of him having hair like lamb's wool. In other words, tight, curly hair of a Black man, having feet like burnished brass in an oven. It's bad. Brass is dark enough, but when you start burning it in an oven, you see a man with Black skin. But yet, many of our people continue to have that image on the wall because there is a vulnerability of having an enslaved mind. Family, just look at this.
Today, Jewish and Muslim women's networks and doing intake work here, and these lovely people who are
On her knees, now call this man, King Charles, screaming, miracle. She's beside herself with excitement over being in this man's presence. Family, do we understand just what that does for us as a people, and this is why there are people in this world who think that they can continue to take advantage of Black people because we have people with that type of mentality? I understand, the whole thing about celebrity. I get it. I get recognized in the street. I see people looking at me in a particular way and they come up to me and, people sometimes want an autograph or they want to take a picture. I get that. That's fine. And, over the years, because of living in West London, I've seen the what do you call that? The motorcades.
Yes, we've seen it.
We see them all the time. They
us.
pass us all the time. We see the motorcades of the royals, okay, when the Queen was alive. I mean, at one time I literally almost entered a motorcade on my motorcycle, and one of these policemen had to stop me. I didn't even realize what the Rolls Royce that was in front and these police outriders. I remember another time I saw when he was Prince Charles driving a green Aston Martin convertible with his police bodyguards in a Rover car behind him, shadowing him, But he was just there, whatever. And yes, it looks impressive when you got this car with this royal and he's been escorted, whatever. It's natural that you would be interested and you might have a look or whatever. You see the motorcade going down the road with several blacked out vehicles with police outriders and they're rushing in the front and they're clearing the vehicles, whatever. It's impressive. It looks good. I'm very much into security and things of that nature. So I understand all of that and it's interesting. But to start crawling on your knees when you see somebody and behaving in that manner, in that fashion, come on, brothers and sisters, think about what the image that gives of us as a people. I saw another video. There was a brother in somewhere in Africa and a group of white people walking, and he's walking alongside them, and he's telling them, "Look, you need to come back and rule and govern because it was great when the white man was in control, and we can't do with that." I mean, it was I couldn't play that. I hope you understand what I'm trying to get at here, dear family, because it's very, very serious. And I know with us today as viewers and regulars on the Imagination show that you're conscious people, you're not on that level. But we're not preaching to the converted. We're saying that many of our people are in that type of condition. See? And they have to be educated out of that, because that becomes literally like a weak link, a detriment to our growth and development as a people. Because, when our people love our former slave masters and their children on that level, where they are literally, giggling like a little chimpanzee in front of them, that's dangerous. You see, because a person like that, and this is the sad part, a person like that, chances are they may have had an argument with their sister or their brother or their mother or their father, and they don't talk to them. and they will cut off another black person in an instant. But once they see that white face, and once they see that, that what they perceive to be royalty or somebody who is high up or somebody who has got some type of rank or position in society, they lose their minds.
That's right.
That's a potential sellout right there. That's a potential enemy and traitor right there. I think the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that if we're not studying, see, because my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. That sister don't know who she is.
Of course she doesn't.
She doesn't know who she is. Because if she knew who she was, she wouldn't be doing this, family. She would not be doing this. My God.
And these lovely people have got
Do be careful.
the dignity.
Yeah.
It's like she was hyperventilating. Oh, dear family. I mean, yeah, it's actually hit me quite hard. Just I've seen it so many times, but my goodness. The vulnerability of the enslaved mind, and I really don't intend to be long this evening, family. The vulnerability of the enslaved mind means that all the enemy needs to do after he has committed the unpardonable crime is to put on a grave-looking face or fake a sweet smile, offer what sounds like a sincere apology, pay a little compensation from the money he prints, by which time he knows he can get right back to his diabolical business as usual, while we forgive, forget, and fall right back into our drug-induced sleep. And by the way, the drugs come from him. You know, like, imagine today we're sort of viewed as the people, as the drug people,
Yes.
the people who take drugs. But we never fashioned these drugs, dear family. We're not drug users by nature, you see? And when you go back into our history and you understand how we understood botany on a deep level and how we knew what herbs to use for health and so on and so forth, and how these people have taken that knowledge, that wisdom, that understanding, and now they've bottled it up in their pharmaceuticals, and they've now turned around and given us synthetic drugs, how they've taken, you know, something like the poppy and made opium. And at one stage, they had the whole of the Chinese nation addicted to opium, and they controlled China as a result. And we, as a people, you know, we think that we're the drug people. No, family, these are things which have been foisted onto us, given to us, used by an enemy to entrap us, to enslave our minds, that they can manipulate and use us for their own benefit. Just listen to this. This is from 1997. This occurred.
So today, America does remember the hundreds of men used in research without their knowledge and consent. We remember them and their family members. Men who were poor and African American, without resources and with few alternatives. They believed they had found hope when they were offered free medical care by the United States Public Health Service. They were betrayed.
The damage done by the Tuskegee study is...
Just before the brother continues, I know that there was some words that came up, and I copied them down because you may not, they may have gone too fast in the film. So let me just read you what it said. It said between 1932 and 1972, nearly 400 black men infected with syphilis. I want to just pause there. 400 black men infected with syphilis. In other words, they're saying that these black men had syphilis. But in my notes here, I put the word "were" in brackets because I'm telling you, family, they were infected. Not that they were infected, they were just found infected. They were infected. Let me continue. Between 1932 and 1972, nearly 400 black men were infected with syphilis when untreated as part of a U.S. Public Health Service experiment in partnership with Tuskegee Institute, a historically black college. The men, many of whom were poor sharecroppers from Macon County, Alabama, were told by researchers, and again, even the language, even the language of respectability that they use when they use terms like researchers, not some wicked demons who knew exactly what they were doing, but they use these terms, see, because this is written by our enemy to tell us about something that they did. So you gotta still know how to really understand what's being said here, but the language that's used to make it sound literally palatable and acceptable. The men, many of whom were poor sharecroppers, just think about that. That's how the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad started as a sharecropper. These are people who just come out of being enslaved, and then they were basically brought back onto the plantation, and they had to, produce those cotton crops and other crops for some dismal amount of reward. Oftentimes, they were ripped off by these plantation owners. But these are the poor people that were being exploited. Okay. They were told by researchers that they were being treated for bad blood, a local term used to describe syphilis, anemia, or fatigue. That was what was on the screen. In exchange for their participation, they received free medical exams. So they were examined freely. Okay, meals and burial insurance. Let's continue with what the brother is saying, and then we'll get back into some of the words that fly by.
Much deeper than the wounds any of us may have suffered. It speaks to our...
His name is Herman Shaw. He's one of the survivors of the Tuskegee experiment, where these brothers were given syphilis and then allowed to keep the syphilis and move around and cohabit with their partners and all manner of things for over 40 years while they observed them and watched them die. And by the way, they used a black woman. The nurse, they used the main person was a black woman who was administering, various treatments to these men, not treatments, but basically monitoring and keeping this program going.
Faith in government and the ability of medical science to serve as a force for good.
You know what the brother is saying? He's basically admitting that, they had faith in the government. They believed that medical science and the application of it would be a force for good. So this is the trusting nature of our people after 400 years. We still turn around, and I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan asked the question, if a man won't treat you right, what makes you think that same man would teach you right? So in other words, you can't expect a person who would keep you in bondage for that period of time and the abuse and what that all entailed to turn around and be good to you. Why? How? In Message to the Black Man, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad called that a hypocritical offer of friendship, so-called integration. Don't fall for that, family. These people have got no good planned for us as a people.
Faith as a force for good.
And look at the language. In exchange for their participation. See, participation makes it sound like You're volunteer.
Yes,
You're you know,
you're willing.
yeah, you're a
Yes.
willing participant. No, it wasn't participation. It was coercion. They were tricked. They were being used, you see. But again, the language is very, very important, family, to understand what people are saying. So you see what that says. It says in 1947, penicillin became the standard treatment for syphilis, but the men weren't treated so that researchers could see the progression of the disease. In 1972, a whistleblower went to the press bringing an end to the 40-year study. 40-year study. Just think about what we do.
We were treated unfairly, to some extent, like guinea pigs. We were not pigs. We were all hard-working men and not boys, and citizens of the United States. The wounds that were inflicted upon us cannot be undone.
Because I think there's a treatment for syphilis, which was the penicillin, and maybe they've developed other things now. But I don't believe that there's a cure. I think once you have syphilis, that's it. You've got syphilis. Similar to like things like herpes and things of that nature. They're like a permanent fixture now in your life. And these are things that, you know, were given to these people.
I'm saddened today to think of those.
Just before our brother continues, let me just read what came up on the screen. By 1972, 28 had died from syphilis, 100 had died from related complications, 40 wives were infected, and 19 children got the disease at birth. The US government reached a $10 million settlement with participants and their families in 1974. It included lifetime medical benefits and burial services. Just so that you know what we're dealing with here. And you know, for some of us, a 10 million settlement. See, you think that money, any amount of money can compensate for the kind of pain and trauma and sickness and disease that these men had to endure, and their families, their wives and their children. And of course, this continues to this day, you see? So, you know, some of us get excited because, like I said earlier, you know, over here, they can give us some compensation from the money he prints, you see? And we think, and like when we talk about reparations, there's many of us who we just can't wait to get a check. But as we all know, that if we got a check tomorrow, the vast majority of us, within a week, that money will be back in his hands. Because we're not going to go and spend it among ourselves. We're not going to do anything productive and constructive for ourselves with that. We're going to give it right back. Just think about these things, dear family. In 1997, President Bill Clinton issued a formal apology to the survivors and their descendants. The last study participant died in 2004. In 2020, 11 descendants received medical and health benefits. See what I mean when I say it continues?
Yeah.
We're in 2025. In 2020, there's still 11 descendants received medical and health benefits. Just think about this.
Those who did not survive and whose families will forever live with the knowledge that their death and suffering was preventable.
No power on earth can give you back the lives lost, the pain suffered, the years of internal torment and anguish. What was done cannot be undone, but we can end the silence. We can stop turning our heads away. We can look at you in the eye and finally say, on behalf of the American people, what the United States government did was shameful, and I am sorry.
Did you see the sister's face when he said, and I am sorry, and then the applause rings out? See, again, because for many of us, that's, oh, wow, he's so sincere. Oh, thank you. And that's enough for us, that they say that what was done was wicked and horrible, and I'm sorry. No, family. Sorry ain't going to bring back those people. Sorry is not going to repair that kind of damage. And Clinton was one of those very, very good speakers. See, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. You understand? Sincere. Come on, man. I just hope that we appreciate that. You know, this is just yesterday. These are the things that are still going on today. You see, you know, Tuskegee is one episode from 1932 coming up into the 70s and still ill affecting people into the 2020s. But the point is that, I mean, this is just one thing that we know about. I'm telling you, family, we haven't got a clue the depth and the level and the wickedness of the things that have been done, are being done, and that are being planned to be done against us tomorrow.
The Tuskegee studies occurred within many of our own lifetimes. To truly combat vaccine hesitancy and encourage diversity.
Remember this brother Jerome? He was one of the people that they were using big time, because this documentary, this video came out around the time of COVID, and they were really pushing, you know, these vaccines on Black people, and this was one of the brothers that they trotted out to really encourage us to get the so-called jab. See? But let me just read some of what came up on the screen earlier on. It says in 2020, 11 descendants received medical and health benefits. As COVID-19 vaccine rolled out, the Tuskegee experiment is cited as a reason why communities of color, especially Black Americans, are hesitant to receive it. Damn right. Damn right we should be hesitant after knowing that reality and that history. But many of our people ran and got it, and are paying the consequences to this very day. Yes. So let's just conclude what his remarks.
Enrollment in clinical trials, we must first acknowledge this real history of mistreatment and exploitation of minorities by the medical community and the government. then we need to explain and
And by the way, we must stop using this terminology of minorities.
That's right.
We're not no minority. Again, language.
Yes.
See, each time we refer to ourselves like that, believe me, minority, small, insignificant, nothing. That's some heavy duty language that we've been taught there. We're not minority. We're the majority on the planet. Caucasians are a small minority on this planet, but they've got us in the UK. We're ethnic, even worse, ethnic minority. Ethnic coming from the root heathen.
They've really tricked us.
Oh man, come on, family man. We got to wake up. Minority.
demonstrate all that has been done to address these wrongs.
Dear family, I hope you're all good. We're going to get through very quickly, and then we can have an early evening.
Afternoon.
I always say that, or afternoon, or
Morning.
or morning, or night, wherever you are, and whatever time you are viewing the 191st edition of the Image and Nation show. Dear family, it's important to understand how we have still not been told the whole truth about what happened in Tuskegee, and the fact that the enemy did not just find 400 black men suffering from syphilis and decided not to treat them in an experiment to see how they suffered and died, but that they were deliberately infected by the enemy with the most virulent form of the disease in yet one more genocidal atrocity against black people, because it's what they do best. Okay? Don't fall for the hype and believe that this was just some, random thing. They found these men. How? No. And here's some of the proof coming up now.
It was here, in Guatemala, hidden from public scrutiny, that the experiments took place. Conscripted soldiers, prisoners, prostitutes, the mentally ill, and even orphans like Marta Oriana, Guatemalans used by the US government as human guinea pigs.
Did you hear that? Guatemalans used by the US government as guinea pigs. What did the brother say earlier on? Tuskegee. They used us as guinea pigs. This is just a pattern of behavior. No, it's nothing different. But with the blacks, they're using a different language, saying, they had syphilis. Yeah. No. Now they're admitting that in Guatemala, they gave them the disease. Just listen carefully, family.
Pues sí, porque como digo yo, para experimentar, ¿verdad? Como que fuéramos animales.
No one gave their consent.
So the sister says yes, so they could do experiments as if we were animals. Let's keep it going.
And they were certainly not informed that they were being infected with syphilis and gonorrhea.
¿Quién dijo que tenían que
You hear that? They were not being informed that they were being infected with syphilis and gonorrhea. They didn't come and find these people with these diseases. Okay? They infected them. Okay. I'll go over the words that these people speak because you may miss some of it.
Estas inyecciones, los americanos.
Sí, los americanos me fueron los que me pusieron esa inyección.
So then you have to ask, did they go back into the community? Did they spread this disease? Did we really give the people of Guatemala syphilis?
So the question was asked to that old gentleman, who told you had to be injected? He said, the Americans. Yes, the Americans were the ones who injected me. See? Let's continue. This woman, she's now asking the question, did we give the people of Guatemala syphilis?
This is Tuskegee, Alabama, where the Guatemalan experiments were hatched. The site of America's most infamous medical experiment, which began...
You see the link?
Yes.
Tuskegee, Guatemala. This is it. They're saying that the plot for Guatemala was hatched in Tuskegee. And what you'll see is that the same individual who was at the helm of all of this is the same individual in Tuskegee, same individual in Guatemala. So it's the same MO, the same mode of operation. Don't let these people put that small-time stuff over on us, trying to make out that, oh, these black men, 400 plus, just had syphilis, and that they were just being tracked and monitored and not treated. No, the same thing that you do or you did in Guatemala is the same thing that you did in Tuskegee.
In the 1930s and ran until the 70s, with the unambiguous title, Untreated Syphilis in the Male Negro. Here, doctors found African Americans already infected with syphilis and then left them untreated.
You hear that? You see? They found them already infected with syphilis and then left them untreated. See, these... See, you know, you got to really understand Satan, dear family, and how, in the end, see, black life is the main thing that these people really oppose. They will poison people who look like them. They will do all kinds of evil to, you know, they're so racist that Italians who have got a little bit of olive in their skin, Dagos, they're wops, they'll have a name, a racist connotation for these people. But make no mistake about it, when you look like Brother Leo, when you look like Sister Claudia, when you got this black melanated skin, ooh, that's the real enemy that must be destroyed. See? And that means, you know, not even admitting the reality of what you've done. You've still got to try and pretend that you didn't do what you did to the black, while admitting what you did to the brown in Guatemala.
That they could monitor their progress. They never told the men that they had the disease. It became a national disgrace.
Just looking at that alone, those images of these people putting needles into the arms of black people. See that sign? Jesus saves. Not that white Jesus that they've been getting us to worship. But make no mistake about it, Jesus does save, but he's a black man. That's what you've got to understand, dear beloved brothers and sisters. We've got to come to the realization of who we are, who Jesus is. See what our relationship with him is, what our relationship with God is. That's the key to all of this, man.
I'm looking for the Pollard family gravesite because a number of the Pollard family people were in the Tuskegee study.
Historian Susan Reverby has spent over 20 years studying Tuskegee and knew some of the men.
Here. So Mr. Pollard definitely died of syphilis and was in the study. And then the other people, this is his wife, I don't know. We don't know what happened to the wives.
One of the doctors, John Cutler, still defended the Tuskegee study more than 20 years after his...
Did you hear his name? John Cutler. Remember that name, okay? But listen to what they're saying about John Cutler.
People, this is his wife, I don't know. We don't know what happened to the wives.
One of the doctors, John Cutler, still defended the Tuskegee study more than 20 years after it was exposed in the press and stopped, saying...
You see the shameless nature of the devil? still defending it,
Yeah, when you're wicked.
still trying to justify it, you see? And this is what they do.
That's right.
And you don't hear them talking about John Cutler going to jail, John Cutler being prosecuted. No, John Cutler, like Tony Blair, is still defending his atrocities and trying to justify the unjustifiable. Tony Blair, who's responsible for the death of over 1 million Iraqis, is like this, treated as this elder statesman who's just going around the world making speeches and collecting all this money and living large. Yeah. Think about it, family. Think about what we're dealing with here.
Study more than 20 years after it was exposed in the press and stopped, saying,
"These individuals were contributing towards the health of the black community, rather than simply serving as guinea pigs for the study."
Even then, Cutler didn't want his guinea pigs to be finally treated for the syphilis they'd carried for decades.
It would be undesirable to go ahead and use large amounts of penicillin to treat the disease because it would interfere with the study.
It was while researching Cutler's role in Tuskegee that Susan Reverby made the remarkable discovery last year that he was head of another, much more invasive experiment started in 1946 in Guatemala.
I was just completely shocked. I had spent, nearly 20 years explaining to everyone that no one had been given syphilis in Tuskegee, and here was a study with the title, Inoculation.
She had spent over 20 years explaining that nobody had given the men in Tuskegee syphilis. But now all of a sudden she's coming across this Cutler again in Guatemala, and the realization that this man's been giving people syphilis and other forms of disease in Guatemala. See? So now where's your explanation about, oh, no one was given syphilis in Tuskegee? Just think about it. Think about it.
Reverby made the remarkable discovery last year that he was head of another, much more invasive experiment started in 1946 in Guatemala.
I was just completely shocked. I had spent, nearly 20 years explaining to everyone that no one had been given syphilis in Tuskegee, and here was a study with the title, Inoculation Syphilis, done by this man who had been involved in Tuskegee in the 60s, and then in the 90s is essentially justifying the study, and I was completely, nobody knew about this.
I see him as an evil man because of the undeniable circumstances that when he was told to discontinue the experiments in the U.S. because they were illegal and ethically wrong, decided to look for a place where he could literally...
He was told to discontinue what he was doing because it was illegal.
Couldn't help himself.
No, but why wasn't he arrested?
Yeah. So you managed to go somewhere else.
Because remember, he's not doing this as some individual, he's doing this on behalf of the government. See, remember this, the US government is involved in this. But the way they speak about it, like, oh, it's just this individual that we should be focused on. No, dear family. Listen carefully to what these people say, and listen carefully to what they don't say.
Really get away with it.
Terry Collingsworth is a Washington-based human rights lawyer representing the Guatemalans who have emerged to file a class action lawsuit against the US government.
The fact that they went to Guatemala is partly, at least, due to the fact that everyone understood that Guatemala was a place where there were no rights for poor people or people in prison, and that you could pretty much do what you wanted with them. So to take advantage of that kind of situation certainly multiplies the crime.
Not just Guatemala, but other parts of the Caribbean, other parts of Africa, the Indian subcontinent, wherever black, brown, yellow, people of color on this planet, Caucasians have gone all around the world, injecting, infecting, doing all manner of experimentation on us for their own nefarious reasons and purposes, oftentimes for their own benefit in terms of experimenting on so-called medical procedures that they could then turn around and use to benefit themselves after they had mutilated and annihilated and literally destroyed countless Black people, their families, in these so-called experiments. You see? We were the guinea pigs. We were the ones who were the cannon fodder. We were the ones who were useless eaters who could be disposed of. And, you know, according to this lawyer, you know, Guatemala, like so many other places, were seen as the places where they could basically go and do whatever they wanted to do. Just think about this mentality.
Collingsworth has a local lawyer handling the case in Guatemala.
Aquí están las personas y aquí está su nombre, Marta Cesarea Pérez Ruiz. Y aparte cuando ya se incluían ya sus hijos, pero todos están ya en la demanda. Aparte de usted hay otras personas.
Some claim to be direct victims, and others, like Marta Cesarea's children, descendants of victims. One of them was born without a brain, and her severely disabled daughter was born with syphilis. Syphilis is a disease which, if not treated early enough, can lead to serious physical and mental illness and can even kill.
Allá le detectaron a ella la sífilis. Pues. Decía el médico que saber qué enfermedad tenía yo, pero casi no, cuando él detectó era la sífilis, sí, ajá. Y las dos. Entonces nos pusieron con penicilina bien doble, dijo el médico, para, ¿verdad? Porque está muy avanzado.
Innocent people. So some of the words that came up there says, here are all the people and here is your name. This is what the lawyer was showing her name and children's name on a piece of paper, Martha Cesarea Perez Ruiz. Your children's names are also included. They are all included in the lawsuit. They detected, this is what she says, they detected syphilis in her, talking about her daughter. The doctor said that the disease he had detected in me was syphilis, too, in both of us. So they treated us with a double dose of penicillin because the doctor said the disease was very advanced. But listen to the way the doctor is talking, like, you know, not that they had infected them, but that, you know, they'd found this in them. I mean, honestly, family.
I'm about 3 hours from the Guatemalan capital, on the way to meet some former soldiers who were directly infected in the experiments. Now well into their 80s, they're some of the only known survivors.
Aquí es donde vamos a llegar a mi casa, donde vive Federico Mesa.
They're lucky to have lived this long. Many of the other victims died years ago.
Él es mi papá.
Federico Ramos Mesas was forcibly conscripted into the army in 1946 and soon became an unwitting participant in the study. He says he was subjected to a series of tests and treatments, but was never told what it was for.
No podía decir que no. Media vez me cayera bien.
¿Por qué no puede decir que no?
Que me inyectaron. Y en ese tiempo, después fue que resulté con eso.
Cuando usted se casó, ¿le pegó esa enfermedad a su esposa?
Más o menos, sí.
Not far from here is another affected family whose father was also...
Let's just go over the words that he said. It said, we're arriving at my house. Federico Mesa lived here. That's my dad. I couldn't say no. I had to keep quiet. Why couldn't you refuse? They injected me. And after that, I ended up with this, talking about the disease. Did you pass on the disease to your wife after you got married? More or less. I mean.
Also forced into the army at the same time. They say syphilis killed him.
Ahí lo inyectaban cada 15, cada mes.
pero nunca le dijeron a él para qué. Entonces cuando él salió del ejército, él vino a sufrir esas mismas consecuencias ya aquí ya. Él se juntó con mi mamá y entonces esa misma enfermedad le causó la muerte a él y infectó a mi mamá.
Their mother died with an open sore on her hip.
Que ella sí sufrió enorme ese dolor.
Le fue creciendo todo y todo hasta que, y es una pierna hasta de una vez se le cayó cuando ella botó la piel, ¿verdad?
Victoria has been clinically blind since she was very young and believes it was the result of her father's illness.
Y yo le dije que yo no miraba bien. Y entonces él me llevó a un centro de salud, pero y le dijeron que me llevara a un lugar, pero como no había piso, no me llevó, así me quedé. Ajá.
Hay otros exsoldados afectados, pero no sabemos quiénes son porque ya murieron. Sí, ya
¿Su
murieron.
familia puede ser en otro lugar?
Sí, en otros lugares están, pero no sabemos nosotros quiénes son.
Y pasando la enfermedad de sus nietos y los bisnietos.
Sí, porque esto es una,
siguiendo, ¿no?
una cadena que se va afectando, ¿verdad?
Almost every...
Just let's go over the words. They injected him every fortnight to a month, for a month, but they never told him why. After he left the army, he began to feel the effects once he was here. Then he got together with my mum, and that same disease caused his death and infected my mum. She really suffered enormously. It just kept growing and growing right down to the leg. The skin was coming off. I told my father I couldn't see very well. He took me to a medical center and they told him to take me to another place, but we had no money. So I stayed like this. She's basically blind. Other ex-soldiers were affected, but we don't know who they are because they're already dead. Their families could be elsewhere, yes, but we don't know who they are. The disease may have been passed on to their grandchildren, yes, because this is like a chain that keeps infecting people. Their family.
Everything we know about the Guatemalan study is from these notes and letters in US archives.
On Friday the 9th, we performed another experiment, inoculating 6 patients with pus and treating 3 of them.
Dr. Cutler's own correspondence, this one to his boss at the Public Health Service in New York, reveals he was well aware they were overstepping boundaries.
I hope that it would be possible to keep the work strictly in your hands, without necessity for outside advisors or workers other than those who fit into your program and who can be trusted not to talk. Sincerely, John C. Cutler.
Deeper into the Guatemalan countryside, I'm going to meet another former soldier infected by syphilitic prostitutes planted in the barracks by the doctors.
You hear that? The prostitutes were planted in the barracks by the doctors.
Horrible.
And the prostitutes, by the way, were given the syphilis as well. I mean, family. We just don't. We haven't got a clue what we're dealing with, and it's time to wake up.
Ya vamos a llegar después del río.
Mucho gusto, yo soy David, un periodista australiano.
Yo soy Manuel Guriel.
Mucho gusto y un placer conocerlo.
Descanso que sea por aquí en la sombra.
Okay.
Pero la noticia está que esa enfermedad vino de los gringos a Guatemala. Ajá. Y por eso es que se extendió la enfermedad esa. Porque fíjese que en ese tiempo las mujeres eran baratas de cuarto. Valían 25 y 50 y un quetzal. ¿Qué no entraba? ¿Verdad? Pero nunca piensa uno la enfermedad que tienen.
He remembers being treated by American doctors at the military hospital.
Me vacunaron como 8 días y de ahí me echaron para el cuartel. porque usted sabe que en el cuartel, solamente que no puede andar, pero está firme. Me fui y empecé.
Sadly, Gudiel will never know how the legal case ends. Not long after this interview, he died.
Ah, ya no voy a ir donde la chica.
Ya no más.
Ya no.
Bueno, adiós.
Ah, que le vaya bien.
Adiós. Adiós.
I think every
Family, let me just go over those words quickly. When they were approaching the village, they said, we're almost there. It's just over the river. Then they meet the little man there. I'm Manuel Goodell. It's a pleasure to meet you. Rest with me in the shade. They now say that the gringos, you know what gringos is, right? The white man. They now say that the gringos brought the disease to Guatemala. That's how the disease spread. You see, in those days, women were cheap, only a quarter. You only paid 25 cents, 50 cents, or one quasal. I guess that's, you know, a form of the money there in Guatemala. Why wouldn't you be up for it? He was explaining his mentality, I guess, as a young man, as a soldier. Why wouldn't you be up for it? Cheap women, you know, cheap sex. You never stopped to think about the disease they were carrying. They jabbed me, listen to this, they jabbed me every 8 days and then sent me back to the barracks. When I got back there, I couldn't walk properly, but I was pretty steady on my feet. So I left and started I'm not going back to see the girls. He was laughing. I'm not going back to see the girls, not anymore. Okay, bye. All the best. Bye, sir. You know, family, it's just to appreciate also how poor people, ignorant people, people who are not the most educated, how, you know, these people go into these rural villages and places in these countries around the world. And again, as a gringo, as a white man, as a Caucasian coming in, he's a doctor or he's disqualified individual, whatever. And so many of our people, we just submit. We just
Vulnerable.
yeah, we just the vulnerability of the enslaved mind. You see? And you know, like I was thinking about this the other day, this thing where often it comes up now and then how Black people have been in China and they've experienced racism, or they've been in Japan and they've experienced racism, or they've been in other parts of the world among yellow or brown people and they've experienced racism. And there's this kind of shock that these people, but remember, you know, those of us who live in the West understand the reach of Hollywood, understand the stereotypical images that have been created of Black people and then have been projected all over the globe. And so many people who don't know anything about us have seen us portrayed in a particular way, you see? And so don't be surprised when you go to some far off region and people are looking at you sideways because they think they know something about you based on what's been projected about you and me all over the planet. See? Just something for us to really think about.
Every person who got infected, however the methodology was a victim of a serious crime, an invasive crime. Your body is your temple.
Listen to this man talking about serious crimes. He referred to the Collier as evil. See, because that's what he is. You're dealing with a satanic mind, a devil mentality here. But yeah, despite the talk, ain't nobody getting punished. Ain't no retribution. This is with impunity these things have been done. And like I said, these are, there was a number of things I could have talked about this evening. Okay, nuclear experiments. Okay, which, I mean, honestly, when you see what these people have done around the world to innocent people, I mean, it's blood curdling. It's really, it's and some of it is just unbelievable if you don't know Satan if you don't know the devil, if you haven't been exposed to the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad as taught and exemplified by the honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. You know, that white woman earlier on was talking about how shocked she was. Well, guess what? I'm not shocked, because we've been taught well about who and what we're dealing with, dear family. You see? And, you know, this lawyer, presumably he's trying to be a good man, helping these people, these Guatemalans, to file this lawsuit against, you know, what has been done to them. But he's shocked, see, because he doesn't know the reality of his own people and what they do. Just think about it.
I think every person who got infected, however the methodology was a victim of a serious crime, an invasive crime. Your body is your temple. So
however the methodology that was used, because they used many different ways to infect many different people. If they were prostitutes, if they were you know, the Johns who were going to be using these prostitutes, if they were, I mean, we'll get into the children in a second as well, because it's just horrendous, family.
To speak, and to have someone without telling you expose you to a disease that would damage you is a really serious crime. But they did it with children, and to me that takes you know, another level of wrong.
Behind these walls in the capital, Guatemala City, is the orphanage. The complex covers an entire city block. It was somewhere inside here 64 years ago that a then 10-year-old Marta Oriana says her nightmare began.
Y me acostaron en una camilla. Entonces un doctor estaba de este lado y el otro, y la enfermera me tenía agarrada la cabeza. Entonces ellos hicieron por abrirme las piernas, ¿verdad? Y yo no quería. Entonces yo, como niña de 10 años, con sus fuerzas que podía tener, ¿verdad? Yo no quería y no quería, yo hacía lo posible porque no. Entonces ellos decían, no se puede, no se puede.
She says the director, Dr. Cofinho, hit her in the face to get her cooperation.
Entonces ellos empezaron, no sé si eran gasas o algodones, no sé, pero ellos me abrieron las piernas y me hicieron ese examen en mis partes, pues, y me metían los dedos con algodón y iba de meterlos y los ponían en una cajita que ellos tenían hacia un lado y yo lloraba, pues, porque una niña, pues, me dolía, ¿no?
After this, she became so sick, she says she was bedridden for weeks. The next time she was called in, it was in a group of 10 girls.
Me volvieron a llamar y entonces ahí fue donde me pusieron con la cabeza hasta los pies, me doblaron y me sacaron el líquido de la columna. Entonces yo sí, cuando ellos me sacaron la aguja, yo, curiosa como niña, ¿verdad? Volteé a ver así y así fue el poco de que me sacaron de la columna, amarillo.
Well, to intentionally infect children with a disease so that you can test drugs on them, it really sinks to...
Let me just go over the words that the lady was speaking. She said, they laid me on a bed with a doctor on each side and the nurse holding my head. And then they tried to force my legs open. I resisted with all the strength of a 10-year-old girl. I wouldn't let them. I did all I could to stop them, but they kept saying I had to. Then they got gauze or cotton wool, I'm not sure. And they opened my legs and then they examined my private parts and they put in their fingers and inserted cotton wool. They did this over and over and then they placed it all in a box beside the bed. And I cried because I was a child and it hurt. And that's when they doubled me over head to toe and then took the liquid from my spine. When they took out the needle, like any child, I was curious. So I turned my head and looked, and I saw the liquid they had taken from my spine. It was yellow. I mean, just, you know, this is what they're doing to children. And then remember, she then goes to another place and there's many other children, showing that was her individual experience, but this was being done to children, many children.
Que me sacaron de la columna, amarillo.
Well, to intentionally infect children with a disease so that you can test drugs on them, it really sinks to about the lowest of the lows in the 7 levels of hell.
It's still unclear whether the experiments ended when Dr. Cutler left in 1948. Questions remain about this former mental asylum and whether testing continued here. One man, who is also listed as a plaintiff, is convinced that years after Dr. Cutler left, his brother was experimented on here. One day he escaped and made it home, complaining doctors were constantly injecting him. Even though he didn't smoke, his pockets were full of cigarettes.
Entonces mi mamá decía, ¿por qué aparece con cajetillas de cigarros de Víctor? Decía así y le aparecían en ese uniforme. Entonces yo por eso doy de que sí, les daban cigarrillos a ellos en ese tiempo.
¿Para pagar?
Para que ellos se dejaran hacer cualquier cosa que quisieran los médicos ahí.
It's recorded in Cutler's notes that participants were given cigarettes for their participation.
So let's just go over the words. It said, my mum would ask, why is Victor bringing so many cigarettes? She'd find lots of them in his uniform. So I believe they give them cigarettes back then. So they basically cooperate. Yes. So the doctors could do whatever they wanted to them. Once we were at La Oria Zoo, and one of my, that bit hasn't come up yet.
Oh.
Let's continue. I think that's the woman who was a little girl comes back in.
Another suspicious footnote is that years after the experiments are supposed to have ended, Marta Oriana says she was followed by one of the doctors involved in the experiments she endured as a 10-year-old child. She feared he wanted to continue his experiments on her.
Y allá andaba él hasta una vez que andábamos en la Aurora, en el zoológico. Una de mis compañeras me dijo, Chata, mira, me dijo, ahí anda el doctor aquel, me dijo que estuvo allá. ¿Dónde? Le dije yo, en aquel carro negro, mira, me dijo.
¿Pero por qué?
Andaba preguntando por vos, me dijo. ¿Pero para qué? Le dije yo, a saber, mejor andate con la seño, me dijo. Entonces yo me fui con la señorita y ahí me puse a la par de ella. Porque digo yo que él a mí me quería secuestrar.
After what she's learned,
So let's just go over those words. Once we were at La Oria Zoo, and one of my classmates said, look, there's that doctor who did those things. Where? I said. She pointed to a black car. Why? She said, he'd asked after me. What for? I asked. She said, who knows? Go with the teacher. So I went up to the teacher and started walking beside her because I'm sure he wanted to kidnap me. Let's get back into this as this one.
being two of the world's worst-known examples of medical malpractice, Susan Reverby says anything is possible.
I mean, I think not exactly the same. I mean, most studies still have to go through institutional review boards, but clearly some kind of study that we will be equally shocked about is obviously going on right this minute somewhere.
Did you hear that? See, this woman is very clear. You see, make no mistake about it. From her perspective, this type of thing, if not the exact same thing, this type of thing is going on right now, somewhere, if not many places on the planet. And she is absolutely 100% correct. Just think about it, family. You think these people stop?
Not exactly the same. I mean, most studies still have to go through institutional review boards, but clearly some kind of study that we will be equally shocked about is obviously going on right this minute somewhere else in the developing world, for sure.
Somewhere else in the developing world. And I mean, you know, I don't know if you've heard about some of the things that Bill Gates has been doing in India and the Indian subcontinent, in Africa, and the lawsuits that are going on in these various places where people have died as a result of being injected in various parts of Africa and parts of India. You know, These people, man. You see, family, there's a reason why the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said separation is the best and only solution. The best and only solution. Separation. We've got to separate.
That's right.
You see, some of us really think that we have to coexist, but we don't. Not like that. In closing tonight's subject, we will stay with Guatemala a while longer, just in case there is any doubt that these were in fact experiments where the test subjects, the South American and African American men and women and children, were all tricked in one way or another into deliberately being infected without consent or any real knowledge of what was happening to them and to what nefarious ends or what wicked purposes, okay? This is just to seal it if any of us are in any doubt.
The Guatemala inoculation experiments entailed a series of human rights violations that reminds us of the dangers involved in allowing scientific knowledge and national security to justify what the New York Times called in 1947, quote, ethically impossible actions. Between 1946 and 1948, around 1,500 people in Guatemala, including prisoners, soldiers, prostitutes, psychiatric patients, and children, were enrolled without consent in unethical studies related to the testing and treatment of sexually transmitted infections, STIs, including syphilis, gonorrhea, and cancroid. Among many procedures, they were intentionally infected with these diseases through sexual contact with paid prostitutes, and by smearing the bacteria on open cuts and sores, or inserting it.
Are you listening, family? This is what they did intentionally, okay? They're making it abundantly clear. Smearing pus and the disease in open wounds and all manner of methodologies to infect people with these wicked diseases, okay?
With these diseases through sexual contact with paid prostitutes, and by smearing the bacteria on open cuts and sores, or inserting it in the eyes, rectum, or urethra. The Guatemalan studies only fully became public when they were accidentally discovered in 2010. The U.S. National Institutes of Health and the Pan American Sanitary Bureau, which would later become the Pan American Health Organization, financed and institutionally supported the experiments. The Guatemalan government was also complicit and received compensation for its participation.
Did you hear that? The Guatemalan government was also complicit and received compensation for its participation. See, like so many of these African governments who are compromised into allowing these non-governmental organizations, so-called NGOs and other entities to come into African countries, come into South American countries, come into Caribbean countries and experiment on their own people. And the government knows what's going on and they get paid off. What they call here compensation, they get paid off to allow these wicked things to be done to the peasant class of people, to the masses of the people, while the governmental elite, you know, live in their palaces and their luxury estates and their ranches and whatever, and they go to the UN and they go to these international conferences and meetings or whatever, and they have the facade of respectability and government, but in reality, oftentimes they're in the pocket of Washington, in the pocket of Westminster, in the pocket of Brussels, in the pocket of Paris, compromising their own people's health and well-being for this printed money of an enemy. I mean, just think about how wicked that is, man. and the people, unsuspecting people, just being abused and just killed for no reason other than they're going to be used as guinea pigs for testing all manner of heinous crimes on the masses of the people. They want to test how radiation works. They want to test how certain drugs work, certain chemicals work, how certain biological agents work. And they come into the country and get a free pass to go and experiment on the people.
The documents discovered in 2010 revealed that Dr. John Cutler of the Public Health Service headed the Guatemalan experiments. Cutler would later be involved in the now infamous and more well-known Tuskegee experiments, in which hundreds of African Americans with syphilis were studied without being provided treatment for the disease. The U.S. government's support for the Guatemalan experiments came primarily out of its need to reduce sexually transmitted infections.
I want you to listen carefully to this bit, because this is really important. This gives you some of their motivation, okay, and where it's really coming from, and what was the motivation behind a lot of this. See, because maybe a lot of us don't understand how these people think and what they do.
The U.S. government's support for the Guatemalan experiments came primarily out of its need to reduce sexually transmitted infections in the military. Ever since the Civil War,
came out of a need to reduce sexually transmitted diseases in the military. Why is the military particularly vulnerable to sexually transmitted diseases? Because every time these people are colonizing, war making, going into all of these countries around the world, bombing and killing and doing what they do, part of what they do is they have sex, either through rape or through forced prostitution or through other means. They have sex with the local women and the local people. And oftentimes these soldiers are so filthy and nasty, they're bringing all manner of disease with them. And then this becomes like a pandemic. Wherever their militaries go, they're having these are some crazy people. You know, they're drinking, they're doing all kinds of drugs. If you understand what went on in Vietnam, and if you've seen some of those movies, Me, Love You, Long Time, I mean, they corrupt the people, you know, and it's just so much sexual relations that take place among the military class. You see, and then a lot of disease is generated, and then a lot of these soldiers, they're getting sick because they got gonorrhea, they got all of this, and then they're giving it to all of the native people in these countries that they've got their bases. Remember, America has got something like 850 military bases in different countries all over the planet, and the amount of sexual relations that they have and that going on, and I mean, you know, rapes as well, because they're like a law unto themselves, and the local people can't do nothing about it, because this is a military entity, and it's like an invading force. And wherever they go, wherever they have war, you know, understand that in Ukraine right now, there's so much illicit sexual relations taking place. It's crazy, beloved. It's what's called in warfare booty, you know, the spoils of war. And this is a thing in with Europeans and all of their wars. Everywhere, when you hear about the wars like in Afghanistan and places like that, the amount of Afghan women who are getting raped, and then the amount of disease that's being generated. So the disease aspect becomes a big problem for the military hierarchy, and they've got to try now and find ways to cure or fix these diseases. So then they start to experiment on the people. Do you understand? This is how it all comes about. This is one of the main motives for all of this experimentation, because they're trying to solve their own promiscuous problem that they generate and cause themselves when they go into these countries and they start to have illicit sexual relations with these women and girls and boys and whoever, cattle if necessary. I mean, these, you haven't got a clue how depraved some of these people are and the type of things that they do when they're in other people's countries.
Need to reduce sexually transmitted infections in the military. Ever since the Civil War, STIs like gonorrhea and syphilis had incapacitated large numbers of troops and resulted in the loss of significant man-hours. During World War II, the government launched a full campaign to educate soldiers about
These are the campaign launched by the government during World War II, promoting, because they say rabbits are always having sex. Rabbits, they have a lot of sex, and this is why, for instance, at Easter they have the bunny rabbit and so on and so forth, and it's all about chocolate and sex. And I mean, this is way from their pagan past, but this is like one of the ads that they were using during the Second World War, trying to discourage their soldiers, their troops, from having all of this sexual contact during warfare. If you must be a dumb bunny, stay one jump ahead of trouble. And they were promoting condoms, promoting wearing some type of protection to guard against sexually transmitted disease, because it's a big thing in the military, okay? Especially the military fighting wars abroad. All those wives and girlfriends waiting for their soldier boys to come back over, they're having sex, okay? They're having sex like it's like on another level, not even like rations. They go crazy when they're abroad. You see, this is what you've got to understand about the US military, the British military, the French military, all of them, the German military, they're all the same, brothers and sisters.
the dangers of VD, or venereal disease, and prevent it through the use of condoms and pro-kits, prophylactic kits. This campaign made an explicit link between unprotected sex and the nation's security. Government propaganda emphasized
Unprotected sex and the nation's security. Look at the adverts. These are from the 40s. She may look clean, but see, pickups, good time girls, prostitutes, spread syphilis and gonorrhea. Like they're blaming the woman, but in reality, it was these promiscuous soldiers that were just sleeping with anything and anyone, whether they were consenting or not consenting. Most of it ended up generating a lot of disease, because these are filthy, dirty people, not clean, washing and doing things in any kind of proper way. She may be a bag of trouble, syphilis, gonorrhea. This is the type of adverts that they were putting out to warn their soldiers against venereal disease.
of women as carriers of VD, and of VD as a threat to the war effort.
Threat to the war effort.
The prevention campaign was not effective enough, however. GIs continued to contract STIs, and the government wanted to find ways to treat.
Hear that? The GIs, it was non-effective. The GIs continued to contract venereal diseases. They were just full of it. It's a real thing in these militaries, okay? And so this is why, again, a lot of these experimentations then were launched against a lot of indigenous and native people.
To contract STIs, and the government wanted to find ways to treat and cure these diseases. Originally, scientists had begun to study STI treatments in 1944 in the U.S. penitentiary in Indiana, using documented consent. yet the scientists were unable artificially to provoke infection in the prisoners. Backed by the US government's need to control VD in the military, scientists decide to move their operations out of the country and into foreign bodies in the hope that they would expedite their findings.
See, they realized that they could do it much more expediently in foreign countries. This is where Guatemala comes in. This is where other Caribbean nations come in. This is where African countries come in, dear family.
By moving the study to Guatemala, researchers would have the option to test and observe quote-unquote naturally infected subjects, that is, infected through sex, without the need to obtain consent. One of the first aims of the Guatemala experiments was to better understand serological testing for syphilis. Prisoners, leprosy patients, and psychiatric patients were all tested. But because of the high rate of false positive tests, Cutler also carried out hundreds of tests on children, primarily orphans, as a way to verify the testing methods themselves. There was no documentation of consent by the children's parents or guardians for their participation in these
No
tests.
consent.
In order to study STI treatments, multiple rounds of quote-unquote natural infection were attempted on the Guatemalan subjects. Prostitutes were used to infect men, and some of these prostitutes were deliberately infected via cervical swabs of infected pus. When this method also proved highly ineffective in provoking infection.
So those prostitutes, they'd be going for like checkups at clinics, and they'd be deliberately infected with the very swab that they're using. Look at this man's nose, eaten out by syphilis. A man with a syphilitic nasal lesion. This is 1971. Just think about,
via cervical swabs of infected pus. When this method also proved highly ineffective in provoking infection. Men were infected by having pus from men with gonorrhea or syphilitic material painfully rubbed onto their genitals or into their urethras, by ingesting syphilitic material, or by having it injected directly into their spinal fluid. The goal was to provoke infection in order to test the effectiveness of prophylactic treatments. Ultimately, however, only some of the infected participants received any treatment at all, and the original goal of fully testing the efficacy of prophylactic treatment was never carried through. The story of the Guatemala inoculation experiments reminds us that the ethics of human subject research need to be continually re-examined and enforced, even when national security is raised as the justification. They also highlight that scientific inquiry must not only benefit developed regions at the expense of developing ones. As clinical trials continue to expand in regions like Latin America, ethical considerations must not only focus on consent, but also on addressing the healthcare needs of the populations where studies take place. Over the 20th century, the United States has put laws into place to protect human subjects in scientific research, largely inspired by outrage at the Tuskegee experiments. Nonetheless, the lesson of the need for constant vigilance is important because ethical breaches are not always as obvious as those of the Guatemala experiments.
Family, I really hope we understand that we cannot continue with a vulnerable, enslaved mind when it comes to our enemy.
That's right.
We have to understand that we have an enemy and that they don't sleep when it comes to planning and executing evil against us. Right now, as we speak, we are witnessing the fall of America, Britain, and the white Western world. And as Black people and the people of God, more so than ever before, we must do as the scripture says, and come out of her, my people, and be not partakers of her sins and her plagues. That scripture can be found in the book of Revelation, chapter 18, verse 4. This is what we've got to do now. We've got to come out. We've got to come out of that mindset, that vulnerable mindset, that slave mentality, enslaved mentality mindset that makes us keep going back to our historical enemy, thinking that they're going to be beneficent and merciful to us and that they're going to do something for us, that they're going to help us, that they're going to be doing something which is ethical and correct and medically good for us. It's just not going to happen, dear family. And what we've touched on this evening is literally the tip of an extremely large iceberg. I can assure you, we haven't even touched the surface in terms of the wicked nature of what it is that we are dealing with and why we cannot afford to be a foolish people today. I'm sorry to have to say it, but from the female African reporter to the 5 African heads of state sitting and groveling to Donald Trump in that room before the whole world, after one of them was humiliated, being told how well he spoke English, and another one being told to hurry up while speaking, we can see on full display the classic vulnerability of the enslaved mind, which all of us must get away from and go in search of the mind of Almighty God Allah. I mean, honestly, you know, when I see these so-called African leaders and even just listening to this sister, this black reporter who Donald Trump, you know, spends time flattering and making her feel that she's so wonderful, and then she in turn, you know, rubbing him up and rubbing his back and making him ego massaging him, and the whole thing is just this. It's just despicable. It's nauseating to see black people, you know, fawning over this man and trying to make him to believe that he's some type of hero for black people. My God, family, we got to lose this mentality, man.
Have the meal. Do you want to ask any questions, please? Where's my reporter from Africa? There you are. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Mr. President.
She's very famous in Africa. Okay?
Thank you, thank you. Thank you. I have one question for the African presidents and one question for President Trump. As you can see, Mr. President Trump, all the African presidents are very happy with your efforts to bring peace in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. My question to you is, today you are making history by receiving 5 African presidents and showing the interest of the United States to collaborate and to work close with the African nations. African continent is watching, African youth is watching, and this new approach that your administration is taking to deal with African nations, not only based on help, but in doing business that everybody can win, is really much appreciated for all the Africans. My question is, are you planning, Mr. President, in the future to travel to Africa to see firsthand all those countries in Africa, all those potential that those countries have? And for the African leaders, my question is, as you can see, President Trump is working to bring peace not only in Africa, but also in the world. Are you all considering to nominate President Trump for a Nobel Prize Peace?
That's a very nice reporter. I got to meet her 2 weeks ago when we had the Congo and Rwanda, and we had some other people up from Africa, and that was the first time. But that's very nice. I appreciate the questions. Very nice, actually. Would you like to, at some point I would like to go to Africa, absolutely. We're going to see what the schedule is, but at some point I would like to do that very much. Would you like to give a fast answer, please?
Just listen to that. Would you like to give a fast answer?
Exactly.
He already told one of them to hurry up when he was speaking. You know, I mean, honestly, President Trump, President Trump, but you never hear any of those African leaders referred to by name. they're just 5 presidents, because they're worthless. You see, it's a worthless group of people as far as Trump is concerned, as far as even that so-called African black woman reporter is concerned. They're just 5 people all just lumped together. And even when Trump turns to say, well, would you like to answer the question? It's not like by name. It's not like presidents, because these are all presidents in their own right as well. So why are they not being addressed by their name to the 5 African presidents? It's just, honestly, it's just, it's really pathetic. It's really sad. And they would be better off staying in their country and actually doing something for their people instead of this going with these begging bowls into the White House, thinking that by ego massaging this narcissistic, crazy individual in the White House, that somehow they're going to benefit. And I guess they may individually benefit, but what about the people? What about the masses of our people?
Thank you very much. Of course, we are supporting this.
Microphone, please.
Yeah, microphone, please.
Of course, on soutient cette dynamique pour la paix.
We are in favor of this dynamic for peace. We are very committed on peace. I am the first head of state who went to Russia and who went to Ukraine both since the start of the war. I held the presidency of ECOWAS, and I went to see Mr. Putin. We spoke for 4 hours, and then I went to Ukraine. I spent 12 hours on a train to speak to President Zelensky. But now the weight of President Trump is something else altogether. We are with you. We are behind you to see what we can do to help bring peace back. No one wins when there's war. So you have our support so that we can bring peace back. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Go ahead, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président Trump. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. President Trump.
Mesdames
Thank you
la presse et messieurs.
for your questions.
Lauréat pour le prix Nobel de la paix. Je ne vois pas d'objection.
A Nobel Peace Prize, while I don't see any problem with it, I think that President Trump deserves it for all the efforts that he's worked on. And he brought peace back in the SEAC region. That is my region, the region where DRC and Rwanda signed a deal. And so he is now bringing peace back into a region where that was never possible. So I believe that he does deserve a Nobel Peace Prize. That is my opinion on this.
Well, thank you very much. It's very, very nice. Thank you. I didn't know I'd be treated this nicely. This is great. We could do this all day long. Thank you very much. Please, go ahead.
You know, Donald Trump loves nothing better than being surrounded by sycophantic yes men, and sadly, you know, that's what so many of our so-called leaders represent today. It's very sad, dear family. But in closing, let me just say that the time that we're in is our time. The time that we're in is the time of Almighty God Allah. The day that we are in is the day of judgment. And we are witnessing the fall of America, the fall of Britain, the fall of the white Western world, dear family. And the kingdom of God is at hand. And so don't make a mistake of thinking that we are to manifest this slave mentality anymore. That mentality, that slave mentality must be gotten rid of. It must become a thing of the past. It must be, dear family, history that's left far, far behind us. We cannot continue to allow ourselves this type of vulnerability you see, by having a chained mentality. We must understand that it's time for us to go free. That's what Almighty God Allah, in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, came to do. He came to set us free. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is our example of what it means to be a free black man. And so I hope that something that we shared this evening again has, you know, caused you to think, caused you to reflect, caused you to realize that there are things right now that many of us are doing that are just not conducive to that program that Almighty God Allah has put in place. Freedom, justice, equality, Islam, you see, separation. We cannot continue to try to force ourselves into this man's world, a world that's crumbling, a world that's unraveling, a world that's finished. See? So, dear family, you know, I pray that you understand that it's our time, man. It's not a negative time. It's a very, very positive time. Despite all that you see going on, believe me, this is a glorious time for Black people. But we have to embrace the time, you see, and we have to recognize the time. It's not going to happen by osmosis, accident. We got a mindset of a slave, yet we're going to go free. The two things are not congruent. You have to have the mindset of a free man and a free woman to go free. So thank you, dear beloved family. May Allah bless you as I greet you. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. And then on that note, so don't forget to enable yourself to free your mind, subscribe to the Final Call newspaper, tune into my mind's gone. Tune into what?
Final Call.
Yeah, Final Call Radio. Yeah, absolutely. And also you can get all these books. Fall of America, How to Eat to Live.
Absolutely.
Message to the Black Man.
That's the big one.
Our Savior Has Arrived.
That's right.
This is how you change your thinking from Satan's mind into God's mind, by feeding on the Word of God. So on that note, and don't forget, tune into NOI.org every Sunday. And there's hundreds of lectures on media.noi.org. So tune in, feed our mind. Let's feed our minds right guidance. That's the only way it's going to change, by feeding on God's Word. So thank you once again. May Almighty God Allah continue to guide, protect you all, you and your families. And inshallah, by the grace of Allah, we will be back next week.
Inshallah.
Take
God
care.
willing.
God willing. Have a blessed day, evening, wherever you are on the planet Earth. And thank you once again.